All right, Browns fans, Rufio here. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Cleveland Browns defense, how it's kind of evolved over the season, what we've kind of tried to do to put our players in position to succeed. We're also going to touch briefly on how do we stop Lamar Jackson, or what do you need to do to stop that guy, or to at least slow him down with the Ravens game coming up this week. So we're going to be looking for a second video right after this. It's going to kind of build on what I talk about here that focuses a little bit more specifically on the Ravens and that running game. Aside from the Ravens, right, we're playing teams that are a lot more passing oriented, which we're going to look at today. The Browns have had a tough time this year, a really up and down time. And I think what we're seeing early in the season is represented well by this Cardinals film here. We saw this from the Chiefs. We saw this from Tyrod Taylor and the Houston Texans before he went out with that hamstring injury. We've seen this a lot from quarterbacks who are good at throwing the ball. So here's Kyler Murray and that kind of air raid attack, right? And Kyler represents, man, he is tough to defend. He represents threats with his arm and with his legs, right? So he's kind of a double whammy. But here we're going to see the Browns, we're acting like we're in a two-deep shell. We're not. We're going to rotate into our cover three, and we're going to see Kyler Murray start to scramble and pick up a first down. So here's the play. Kyler's going to get it. Pocket's going to start going in on him. He decides to scramble, eject out of there, and he just has an easy open pass over the middle of the field, right? And we got somebody there to tackle, but this is like, come on. We can't give up free, easy yards over the middle. Like, I literally could have made this throw, and he makes it an easy completion for a first down. So, this is what I was seeing, and I think what a lot of us were seeing early in the season were early throws over the middle. And when you're watching on TV, you don't necessarily see where the ball is going. You don't see that receiver, but you just see our players looking at the quarterback and the ball whiz right by them, right? So this is really frustrating for a number of reasons, and I think one of the biggest reasons it's frustrating is because this is what our defense is supposed to be designed to take away. When you play cover three, this is what you talk about defending first, right? You talk about, especially in a spot dropping style, right? And I covered that in our last video. Make sure to check that out. I'll try to put a link in the description or something like that. But when you play cover three and you play a spot dropping style, why are you doing that? Number one, you're trying to take away the middle of the field. You're saying to the offense, if you want to beat us, you either have to make really difficult throws where this 10-yard pass, right? It doesn't just have to go 10 or 15, a 15-yard pass. It doesn't have to go 15 yards. We want you to have to pass that all the way out here to the sideline, right? We want you to have to make that ball go up and down over some coverage players and drop it in a bucket near the sideline. That's so much harder to do. The ball has to go 30 or 40 yards, right? Travel the hypotenuse of that triangle instead of the short length. So are we doing that here? Absolutely not, right? We are not taking away the middle of the field. The second thing we're trying to do with spot dropping, right, and we're playing where this style of defense where we drop to a spot in the field, is to get eyes on the quarterback. Why do you get eyes on the quarterback? Number one, so you can jump passing lanes, which, again, nowhere close to that passing lane here. And then number two, so that when and if a QB runs the ball, you can come up to tackle, right? And so we're getting eyes on the quarterback, eyes on the quarterback, eyes on the quarterback, eyes on the quarterback. Everyone's looking at him. No one is in a position to come up and stop him for a first down. And so you can see if Kyler does not throw this for an easy first down, if he just turns this way and follows this receiver, I mean, that's terrifying to me, right? An athlete like Kyler Murray in that kind of space, my goodness. So, conceptually, philosophically, we're doing these things for a reason, and we're not seeing that actually work on the field. And that to me is extremely frustrating as a fan and as, someone who knows a thing or two about why we should be doing this, right? It's when you state a goal and you can't even do the first thing on your list, it's infuriating. All right, so looking at this, it is cover three, right? Let's break it down a little bit more individually. Denzel Ward doing his job here. He's top deep third player with this side of the field, right? Receiver's still a vertical threat here, and until about there when he puts that foot in the ground and breaks outside, Denzel has to play deep and outside of that just in case. The other thing with Denzel is he knows, or should know, we have this stack formation on the other side of the field. And again, why do you bring receivers in tight to the formation? Well, either to have them go out or to allow them to cross the formation. And so if one of these players runs a deep cross, Denzel kind of needs to be in position to defend that, especially here, right? Just in case this receiver runs a deep cross over the middle, Denzel needs to be there to hopefully get an interception, if not make a play on the ball. All right, JOK is next. He's a seam curl flat player. Great job here, right? His seam threat is that number 2 receiver inside, is in position to take away that inside seam, make him bubble out and go around him, and then that's where Denzel could pick him up. He's going to play that with inside leverage, just as he should, and then as soon as he clears that seam threat, pushes him wide, he's going to rob underneath that curl zone to the outside of the field. He is in that passing lane to that receiver. That's exactly what you want. If there were a flat threat to that side of the field, once you take that away, then you come up to cover the flat, right? Let the quarterback's shoulders and eyes, as he turns to throw that into the flat, take you there, and that's when you trigger downhill. In this case, by the time he gets to look back, Kyler Murray's already running to the other side of the field. There is no flat threat. Grant Delpit is the one in this play that I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. So Delpit should be rotating down into a hook zone, right? That's one of the 2 interior defenders in cover 3. And instead, he seems concerned with the seams. So he takes this step right here back as though a receiver could threaten that seam. I don't really know what he's seeing there. And there is an adjustment to cover 3 where you would have a player drop deep into the seam there, but that is almost always going to be JOK. It's called a soft sky adjustment. And you would have JOK basically follow any player deep into the seam. But in this case, JOK is not doing that. So I don't know what Delpit's doing. I don't know if he's supposed to be the soft sky player. But giving up this 10 yards of cushion and a free slant for a first down is not ideal. So he should be inside, basically right in here between JOK and Harrison in an underneath zone. And you could see that would be exactly where he'd be able to make a play on that ball or make a hit on that receiver. Schematically, on this side of the field, we have things taken away. I think we would like to have Delpit play this a little bit better, but the scheme, the call is good. It's sound. It's going to take these 2 receivers away, and then we should have 2 players in running lanes with eyes on the quarterback. On the other side of the field, this is where I think our scheme is letting us down a little bit, and so we're going to see here Grady's the deep outside third player, and in fact, we see a great job by Grady. We can see right as the camera's kind of getting to this play, 18 was lined up outside here. And when that happens as a cover 3 corner, you can kind of lie, right? As Denzel Ward is here, you act like you're playing press man or cover 2 or something else. You don't give away that we're playing cover 3 immediately. So I like that here. As that receiver motions in that stack alignment, you kind of have to stack, right? They stack, we stack. That's because when you get this, you're going to get rubs, you're going to get picks, you're going to get all that sort of thing. So if you have 2 guys kind of up here pressing, they're just going to pick the hell out of you, and there's no way you're going to be able to stay with them. So you clear that corner, you stack on top of yourself so that you don't pick each other and you don't get picked by the receivers. So Greedy's got deep outside third responsibility here. Not a whole lot of threats, right? Unlike Ward, who has these 2 stacked receivers who could come over on a deep cross, Greedy only has 1 receiver up there, and he sees pretty immediately that guy is not a threat to run that deep cross, right? You can write that off in the first couple steps of the route. It's not coming. So all he has is deep over the top and outside third of these 2 players, and you're going to see them both break inside. And when Greedy sees those helmets go inside, he puts his foot in the ground and comes up to cover them, which is a great job. That is actually a deep outside third corner, and you can see he is nowhere near that deep outside third. That is great because we're not just covering that grass, right? We're trying to cover the actual receiving threats. Now, where we see that concept break down is with Troy Hill in the slot. And, this is where spot dropping, I think, hurts you, right? When the other team knows it's coming. Troy Hill, immediately on the ball, his eyes on the quarterback the entire time, but he's dropping to his spot on the field, right? In the same spot where JOK is. You're a couple yards outside the numbers, right? 8 to 10 yards deep, whatever. And he's dropping straight there. But when he drops there, he does so without, he's paying attention to the quarterback. He's not paying attention to the fact that there is absolutely no threat out here for him to cover. And so we kind of waste the player, right? And you can imagine here if Troy Hill hangs a little bit inside and plays maybe outside leverage on this receiver, that now Harrison doesn't have to guess because Harrison gets stranded in his hook zone. He's got 2 threats and the running quarterback coming at him. He's got 3 threats, and he's got to make a guess, right? All you can do in that situation is jump one of them and hope that you guess right. And he jumps one, guesses wrong, and the ball goes inside when he goes out, and that's an easy completion. So you can see if Troy Hill were a little bit more pattern aware and were a little bit closer to these outside receivers and pushed Harrison into the middle of the field, Harrison could take away this receiver, right? If Delpit is where he's supposed to be up here, now we've got kind of a wall and we can hem in Kyler Murray. But, we're not seeing the philosophy play out, whether it's because a player is not being coached to do the right thing, whether it's a player's execution and just, I don't know what they were thinking on the play. I don't know why these breakdowns are happening, but this is a problem, right? And ultimately it falls on you as a team and it falls on the coaches to get this stuff drilled in. And to me, this is a problem if we've invested so heavily in a spot dropping cover 3 defense. If you have had since minicamps, right? Minicamps, OTAs, off-season meetings, whatever you got, training camp, to get this right, this had better be right, right? And we're just not seeing the payoff for the investment in this one coverage, in this one style. All right, so let's move now to what we're trying to do kind of to build off of that cover 3 game. So the cover 3, call. We now have basically a quarters call. Again, some type of split field quarters call. I'm not exactly sure on the bottom side what this is. Let's just run through the play here. You should notice, hopefully, that we're cutting to the action quick. So the refs are holding up play. The camera's not even ready, right? Like not zoomed to the proper level or whatever. And the Browns defense clearly is not ready either. So you see Hill, you see Green, you see Delpit, they're all talking to each other. They have no idea what's going on. Hill's still trying to put his mouthpiece back, and the snap is already coming, right? He's not even turned around looking at his receiver yet, and the snap is already coming back to Herbert. So we got caught off guard. And this is one thing that happens when you try to make big changes to your scheme, when you try to do things differently than you've practiced them, this can happen, right? Confusion. You can be slower to communicate, right? This is the downside to doing some complicated things and trying to get them installed quickly. All right, so let's get to the play. So Herbert is just going to get this ball. He's going to drop back, and it's going to be an easy, deep bomb to Mike Williams over the middle of the field. There's no one close, and he walks in for a touchdown, right? It's just a pure blown coverage. And so what we had here was actually a route that's really good against cover 3. And I think the Chargers anticipated our trademark kind of cover 3 spot dropping zone defense on this play, and that's not what they got. And so we should have had a great changeup called and been able to take this away and stop the Chargers. But we blew the coverage and instead gave up really a big dagger. So the call for the Chargers, is a flood concept. We call this sail. You've got one receiver running a deep route that's right here. We've got another receiver running an intermediate kind of outbreaking route, and that can be a straight out or it can be like a more of a corner route. And then we have a third receiver, in this case, going to come from across the formation and run a shallow cross, right? So that could be a running back running into the flat, but some kind of threat shallow is what you're going to get, and everything moving toward that sideline. So, teams love to call sail against a cover 3 defense because you only have 2 defenders out there, right? You typically have this, as the middle field safety. You have the corner on the outside on the sideline, and then you have the seam curl flat player on the outside on the sideline. And if they send 3 and we only have 2 to cover them, well, one of the 3 is going to be open. So I think they were anticipating cover 3, and that's not what they got. So we should be able to cover this. But we blew it on this play. And so to the high side of the screen, I know what we're running with some degree of confidence. The bottom side, I have no idea. And so we could be running the same thing on the bottom, or it could be a different call. But that's one of the cool things you can do with quarters, right? It is not only is it a different coverage in cover 3, so it's a change up that the offense might not expect, but You can also run a different coverage up here than you do down here. And you can kind of run two things at the same time and mix and match. And then if you can run two coverages, well, we can run coverage A up here, coverage B down here, that's 1. We run A, that's 2. We run B, that's 3. Or we run BA, that's 4, right? So you can kind of be multiple in your coverages and mix and match and confuse an offense even further. All right, so in any event, we're definitely running what I would call quarters. This is kind of a TCU type of coverage. You might call it in TCU's terminology like a two-robber up to the high side of the screen, but it's from that kind of family of coverages. So we've got a corner and a safety and an inside player, and those three are going to work together on these two receivers. So this inside player is going to work with anything coming inside, right? And either of these two guys coming inside, that's kind of what he's looking for. And this is very similar to a seam curl flat player, except that you're not going to expand at the flat. You're basically going to relate to the people a little bit more. The corner and the safety especially is going to at first read run, right? You're going to read run versus pass. And immediately upon the snap, Chargers helmets all go backward and they all stand up a little bit. And when you get that is a clear pass read. That means your eyes go from them into your receiver combination here, okay? If this is a run read, and this is one reason I talked about Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, this is a great reason to be good at this coverage because we play Lamar twice a year. This is a fantastic coverage for Lamar Jackson, that Ravens run game. If this safety reads run, he's going to step up into the box and provide that run support. So this is a way to get extra bodies up there against Lamar Jackson, against that option game, and to get fast people, right? Our safeties, the Rodney Harrisons, the Delpits of the world, in space against Lamar, as opposed to a defensive tackle or a slower linebacker, right? In one-on-one with Lamar, how many of them has he made look silly? You at least give yourself a shot when it's a defensive back. All right, so safety is going to read run versus pass. We get a pass read here. That means your eyes go to this receiver combo. So the safety and the corner are both reading the inside receiver. And in this play, it's a little confusing. They do stack here, and then we get a switch. So the outside receiver switches and crosses to the inside, and so he is now the inside receiver, right? We call that number 2. We number from the outside in. So number 1 just runs inside. They crisscross right here, and now number 1, this is now number 2, right? So both these players are reading the number 2 receiver, and when they cross like that, we just let them cross and call him the new number 2. And we're looking to see if he goes vertical, okay? And the safety says if he goes vertical, I'm taking him man-to-man, right? And so the safety is got to stay over the top. And we watch John Johnson shuffle to the right with that player, and because he could be kind of releasing inside around that linebacker, or in this case it's Harrison, and then going vertical down the seam. Johnson has to stay over the top of that. He does, and then at this point in the route, he recognizes, okay, he's going far enough horizontally that this is no longer a vertical threat. It's a horizontal route. I'm passing him off and allowing my inside guy, right, my inside zone, my underneath zone defender, to pick him up and run with him man-to-man. And so I called this an inside zone defender. You notice that this is played basically like man-to-man. It's kind of like a matchup zone, right? If you think about basketball, it's like whoever comes into my area, I'm going to go run with them, right? I'm going to stay glued to them until or unless I can pass them off. And in this case, we're not going to. So we get that. Happens perfectly. Johnson then, once number 2 is no longer a vertical threat, now you look to double on number 1 with that outside player. Now, with the outside corner, you know that you have number 1. If number 2 goes vertical, you got all number 1. Basically, with the outside corner, what you're looking for is if number 2 goes outside immediately, that's the only time you jump over to number 2. And we could basically, it makes sense, right? If you imagine this guy chipping miles and then going out into the flat, why would you have John Johnson run all the way out there and have you run inside when you can just kind of say switch, right? We just switch it. So Greedy here is looking to see if anything comes into the flat. If number 2, any of these players go outside, that's going to be his guy. In fact, he sees one go inside, and then he knows, okay, if this guy goes vertical, I have him. And so Johnson would have this vertical, Greedy would have this vertical. As it turns out, that's going to be just kind of a hook route. And so Greedy stays over the top and is ready to come up and tackle that player before he gets first down. All right, so on the high side of the screen, we do this well. We read it well, right? We read the pattern distribution, even though they have a little cross and a little, switch action that we have here. We pass everything off beautifully, and what we end up with is one receiver that's really tightly covered, and another one that we leave open but short of the first down marker, so we can come up to tackle. The bottom side, things get really jacked up, right? And if you recall, this is a side where everybody's talking before the snap. Nobody knows what's going on. So I think I know what these players think the coverage was. I don't know, obviously, what the call was. And so I can't tell you whose fault it is, basically. But what we have here is another kind of combination coverage where we have an inside player, an outside corner, and then a deep safety. And these three players are working together to bracket these two receivers. Now, on this play, what Troy Hill and AJ Green think is happening is that they have their receiver, AJ Green with whoever becomes the outside receiver, and Hill with whoever is the inside receiver, that they have underneath and outside leverage on these guys. So they should be trailing their person, and they should be outside of them, right? So they should be able to stop any kind of like out routes or anything like that. They both think that Delpit has them for any inside breaking route or any deep route. So Delpit, they think that Delpit is trying to stay over the top of either of these guys if they go deep and or inside. So they are running this. We see Hill lets that receiver go outside. You don't usually want this, but after he goes so far outside, Hill is able to kind of cut back underneath him and then sit on this outside leverage, right? And so that's a little bit more open than you'd want. You'd want, especially right here, Hill to kind of take an angle toward the sideline and play this with a little bit more outside leverage. And he's just a little bit behind the route because he's late getting his head around, because he's late getting that jam and misses on it. He's just a little bit late. So that is open, but he, at least if that ball is going to be thrown, he has a chance to get in there, try to grab a hand or an arm or rip the ball out or something, right? He's at least close enough. All right, now we're going to see AJ Green as well with the same kind of deal, right? We see on the snap, he widens to stay with that outside leverage and turns his hips inside to make that receiver run through him if he's going to run outside. Then he's going to turn his hips and run, and he's going to be underneath, trailing, right, and outside leverage. So if that becomes a deep out, a deep comeback, AJ Green is right there. He's all over it. Now, where the confusion comes is that Delpit thinks he's only bracketing this inside receiver with AJ Green. He does not think that he has responsibility for the number one receiver, the outside receiver, at all. Now, I don't know what the call was, so I don't know if this is Green's fault or Delpit's fault, but Delpit just looks like he's trying to bracket this inside guy. So you see him also turn, and because his hips are facing this way, you know he's keeping that inside leverage. Look at that line, right? He's inside leverage, and he's deep over the top. And so this does not look like a player right here, right, who's concerned with that number one receiver and staying deep over the top of him. He's staying deep over the top of this guy. And in fact, as he goes outside, you see Delpit kind of shade him and start taking steps to the outside to stay over top of that route. Well, the issue is that Green thought he had help, and he doesn't have help here, right? And so that's a miscommunication, that's a blown coverage, and it's a free touchdown because of it. So, with this defense, we're seeing our defensive coordinators try something, We're seeing them try to eliminate the problems that we're having with our cover three, where teams are taking advantage of spot dropping, right? Teams are getting easy completions over the middle, and we're trying to tighten up on those inside guys a little bit more and do a little bit more communication to play more of the receiver and less of a grass, spot on the field. And so this style is pattern matching. It is matching up. It's like a matchup zone, right? You match up with a human being to alleviate that problem. But the downside of it is that if you are not on the same page, right, which requires a lot of practice, a lot of meeting time, a lot of chemistry, right? If you are not on the same page, you're going to give up easy completions and big plays. And that's what we saw in this Chargers game, right? We saw 2 or 3 of these free touchdowns. And it was not because we got beat. It was because we blew coverages. So we see the defense trying things, but they're not working for one reason or another. And we need to make this work to make the talent that we have on the field stand out and be able to play up to the level of our talent. All right, so as I mentioned a little bit, this coverage could be excellent against Lamar Jackson, the Ravens. I'm going to talk about that more in depth in the next video. Look at some Ravens film, look at some Browns versus Ravens film, some old stuff, and talk about that in anticipation of that matchup that we got coming up with them. But this is the foundation, right? If we play a cover 3, we can get 1 extra guy in the box. If we play this quarters coverage, we theoretically get 2 extra guys in the box, and that means we have more bodies up there to stop Lamar Jackson from running the ball and taking away what he does best. So, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if we can do that in our game coming up. So, thanks for watching, y'all. I'm Rufio again. Visit Dawgs By Nature for all your Cleveland Browns news and analysis. I'll leave a link in the description below to the articles there so you can join us in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully this is interesting, and we'll see you in the next one.